What's the best way to build muscle? Should you bulk or take more of a lean gains approach? First, it's important to clearly define what the two of those mean because there seems to be a lot of semantics involved. Now, for myself personally, when I think of bulking, I think more along the lines of going bear mode or dirty bulking, where you're basically eating everything in sight. You don't care about the fat gains, and oftentimes you're going to gain more fat than you are muscle throughout that process. When I think of lean gains, I think about keeping things more in check, where you're consuming a gentle calorie surplus, where you're going to gain some fat throughout the process, but it's going to be minimal. And when I think of main gaining or gaintaining, it's along the lines of basically holding steady around maintenance level calories and just hoping to eke out any little bit of muscle gains throughout that process there. The current recommendations when it comes to building muscle is for beginner lifters to aim to gain about 1 to 1.5% of their total body weight per month. If you're, and a beginner would be considered, say, your first year of lifting. Intermediate lifter, after a year to 5 years of lifting, it's best to gain between 0.5 to 1% of your total body weight per month. And if you're an advanced lifter with over 5 years of lifting experience under your belt, it's best to gain up to 0.5% of your total body weight per month. So if you're a 200-pound bro, a beginner, you'd be looking at gaining between 2 and 3 pounds per month. If you're a 200-pound bro who's an intermediate lifter, looking at gaining between 1 and 2 pounds per month. And if you're a 200-pound bro who's an advanced lifter with over 5 years of lifting experience under your belt, you're looking at gaining up to 1 pound per month. If you're a beginner, that would mean trying to aim for about a 200 to 300 calorie surplus. If you're an intermediate lifter, you're looking at creating a calorie surplus of 1 to 200 calories above maintenance. And if you're an advanced lifter, you're looking at creating a calorie surplus of up to 100 calories there. Again, general guidelines, but it's just our calorie intake is like maintenance level calories is always in flux. There's so much room for error when it comes to the amount of calories we're burning, the amount of calories that we're consuming, that it becomes really difficult to gauge how many calories we're actually consuming, which is why it's best to kind of try to keep things consistent and pay attention to how our scale weight is performing there, the feedback that we're getting from that. And when you look at the research, which is very, very limited and has limitations within itself as well, there's one study that tends to get referenced a lot. I've referenced it in some of my videos there. Trained athletes, where the one group was consuming a 500 calorie surplus. Again, whether they were actually consuming a 500 calorie surplus or not is up to a debate. And another group that was supposed to be in a gentle calorie surplus or closer to maintenance level calories. Again, so much room for error in here, really tough to gauge whether they were or not. It was a 10-week study where that group that consumed that 500 calorie surplus gained about 6 pounds, just under 6 pounds, and that group that was in a gentle calorie surplus gained 2.5 pounds. So looking at the group that was in a 500 calorie surplus, gaining about 0.6 pounds per week or just over 2 pounds per month. The group that was closer to maintenance gained about 1/4 pound per week or about 1 pound per month. Now, when you look at the graph in that study there, you'll see that, all right, the group who gained 6 pounds compared to the group who gained 2.5 pounds during that 10 weeks hardly gained any muscle at all. And according to the research, it was insignificant. But when you look at the numbers, the group that consumed a 500 calorie surplus and gained that 6 pounds gained 1 pound more muscle, just a little over 1 pound more muscle. So for myself personally, gaining 1 pound more of muscle during 10 weeks is pretty damn significant. So I would be all for that. And when you look at the graph, it looks like, holy smokes, that group who gained 6 pounds gained way more fat. Like, it just looks so incredibly significant. But when you look at the numbers, you had the group that was closer to maintenance level calories pretty much gained no fat at all, or really kept it to a minimum there. Whereas the group that gained 6 pounds and was in the 500 calorie surplus only gained 2.5 pounds of fat. So during 10 weeks, if you're gaining 6 pounds and only 2.5 pounds of that is fat, in my opinion, that's a huge victory. That's freaking phenomenal. So gaining just over 2 pounds in a month and only 1/4 pound of that is fat, that is tremendous. I would take that any day of the week. In my opinion, if you're keeping the ratio within like 1 pound of muscle to 1 pound of fat each month there, I think that's a good place to be. If it's more muscle than fat, that's a huge bonus there. But so if you're gaining 1 pound of muscle and 1 pound of fat in a month, I would have no problem rolling with that. But if you're gaining like 1.5 pounds of fat and only 0.5 pound of muscle, I think that's when I would start to make those adjustments. And that's really where I think we get so wrapped up and caught up on the numbers and the details when what really matters is just kind of taking the research, the guidelines, and applying it ourselves and paying attention to our body's feedback. So if you're consistent with your calorie intake, you see your scale weight is going up and you're not gaining any fat, you don't visibly see any fat gain there, it might be a good idea to bump up your calories a little bit and see how your body responds there. If you're gaining just a tiny bit of fat, maybe still bump it up, or you can hold it the same. But if you see like my scale weight's going up, but it's really looking like it's mostly fat gain, you may want to slow it down a little bit. So kind of use your body's feedback. And it really helps. Like the only way you're going to really get the answers that are going to work best for you is to go through a variety of muscle building phases where you modify the amount of calories that you are consuming, the portion size of foods that you're consuming. Using one of my clients, Eric, as an example here, when he first started working with me, he went through a 4-month fat loss phase to kind of reveal his foundation. He's a naturally skinny guy he's 43 years young, been lifting for a couple decades now, so he's an experienced lifter. And after he lost 18 pounds of fat during that cutting phase, he's like, you know what? I've never gone through a true bulking phase. And rather than sticking with the recommendations, like even as a beginner of trying to gain 1 to 1.5% of his total body weight per month, he's like, let's push it to 2% of my body weight, or close, like 1.5 to 2% of my total body weight per month, and see how my body responds there. I'm always up for experimentation, and the only way we're going to get answers is to go through it, see how your body responds, and make the necessary adjustments. So during a 9-month muscle building phase, which is key, you want to make sure that you're in these muscle building phases for a minimum of 4 months and really being consistent throughout the process. You can see when he's been in fat loss mode and muscle building mode, he's pretty damn consistent and linear with his progress. And during that 9-month muscle building phase, he gained 27 pounds. So you're looking at about 3 pounds per month, which is, compared to what I see some people do, like I consider that aggressive, but I see a lot of other guys going bear mode and gaining much more than that. So going through his fat loss phase, it's now been 6 months that he's been going through a fat loss phase and lost a significant amount of weight. So he's looking at over 20 pounds already. I'm trying to think. I forget. It's over 20 pounds that he's lost right now. I think it's like 23, 24 pounds. Yeah, 24 pounds that he's lost during the past 6 months. So 4 pounds a month. Take a nice slow and steady approach. So he's making sure that he's holding on to any kind of muscle gains that he may have gained during that muscle building process. We're realizing that yes, he has gained some muscle throughout that process, but out of that 27 pounds, like it might be a pound or two. So that ratio is way off in regards to the amount of fat gain compared to muscle gain. So it would be in his best interest to kind of slow that process down when we approach his next muscle building phase there. Now, some people may look at this and go, all right, like during that 9 months, he gained 27 pounds. Like, what if he gained a pound more muscle by doing so compared to if he had only gained 10 pounds during that fat loss phase there? I've watched a video, Alex Leonidas recently, who talked about like bulking is not dead. He loves bulking, and he's again looking at this one research paper where they gained 1 pound more in that 10 weeks. He's like, over time, like that would accumulate there. So if you're gaining a pound more muscle, that's fantastic. But if he gained 27 pounds compared to just 10 pounds, and you only have to go through a 2-month cutting phase compared to a 6-month cutting phase, I mean, that's giving you 4 more months to be in a calorie surplus and focus on muscle building. So if you're really looking at the big picture, you're like, because Alex is like, over the big picture, that pound of muscle over time is going to add up and add up. But over time, if you're comparing that you have to spend way more time in fat loss mode compared to if you take a slower and steady approach, I think the two approaches kind of balance out. So it really comes down to individual preference, I would say. Do you really enjoy going bear mode, pigging out for several months, knowing that it's going to take several months for you to lose that fat and you don't mind that? Now, in Alex's case, I've watched some of his cutting phases and he seems like near death at the end of it. He's miserable and cranky. I'm like, so I don't want to put myself through that extended period of time of fat loss phases, but some people just, they thrive from that process. So it really comes down to an individual preference. I think whether you're going for a lean gains approach or a bulking approach, it's going to be up to you, your lifestyle, what you think is going to be best, because I think the two in the big picture kind of go, there's not going to be too much of a difference. It just depends on what your personal preferences are. If you don't mind carrying extra body fat around at certain times of the year, and you don't mind going through those cutting phases certain times of the year, that's awesome. But if you're someone who's like, I kind of prefer to keep things somewhat stable, then you got to know yourself. For myself personally, I've gone through multiple muscle building phases during the past, well, all my life really, but especially during the past 13 years after I lost 50 pounds of fat. I went through a muscle building phase where I gained 30 pounds, realizing almost all fat. So I'm like, I'm going to do 20 pounds from now on. So I did 5 years where I gained 20 pounds during my muscle building phases, cut it down, like, okay, there's no difference there. Let's see what 10 pounds is. Like, again, extended muscle building phases, 7, 8 months, 11 months for some of these where I'm in only gaining 10 pounds. A lot of times I'm almost a year of muscle building where I keep it within 10 pounds. And really all of them, the muscle building results have been exactly the same. It's just when I take that slower and steady approach, I'm spending most of my year in a gentle calorie surplus where I'm feeling my best. I'm performing my best. I almost have to spend minimal time, almost no time at all in a calorie deficit where I may not be at my best there, and it gets done and over with as quickly as possible. So that's what I have found works best to me. The end result in regards to muscle gains is exactly the same. So I would rather feel my best and perform my best through most of the year compared to feeling my best, performing my best, being able to eat more for a certain duration, but still have to spend a lot of time in fat loss mode where I kind of have to deprive myself during those times. So again, that's my personal preference of where I'm at right now. And it's up to you to decide what's in your best interest. So I would love to hear about your personal experiences. First of all, how do you define bulking and lean gaining? And if you've done bulking, how has that worked out for you? If you've done a lean gain approach, how has that worked out for you? And what is your personal preference? So please take a moment to share your thoughts down in the comment section below.